Welcome, everyone. We're going to be diving deeper into Watson Workspace development today. We've got a great show for you. We've got have some of the key developers around Watson Workspace. We're going to start off with an intro by Ted Brufke. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Ted Brufke.
Thanks, John. I want to thank everybody for attending today. Welcome. Really appreciate your joining. I know it's a busy time of year. This is the second in what we're planning is a series of webinars specific to Watson Work and Watson Workspace, and really an exciting time. I just got off a call. We were talking about the next release of the product and where it's going, and I think that more and more is coming. More excitement is being developed here. The industry is really taking notice of what we're doing. So I think that your timing is really good. Today I'm joined by three of my peers at IBM, some very knowledgeable guys. So going left to right, Curti Ghani, who's our program director for Watson Workspace. Curti and I work together on a daily basis. Van Staub, who's the channel's technical sales, and Van drove the last session that hopefully many of you were able to see. And Prabhu, who's our business development. And we're going to talk more about how you can reach out to the people that are presenting today and where it's going. I wanted to put one advertisement out there. We have put the Watson Workspace product into the partner value pack. So your partners, or if you're a partner that participates in the value pack, you can apply and get provisioned accounts to use the product. And we've had a really nice uptick in the number of people that are using it. I was out this week with a couple people that have taken advantage of it for their corporations. They're excited about it. They're excited about what's coming next. So take advantage of that if you get a chance. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, need support, etc., as it goes to that. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Van, who's going to give you a recap of what we did in the first session and talk about where the information is posted, how you can go back and look at it if you missed that first session, what the highlights of that were. And then when we get to the end of the session, we're going to have another slide that shows you where all of the assets are, the links that are available for you. So again, thank you. Again, I know it's a busy time of year, so we'll try to give you a lot of great information and maybe a few minutes back at the end of the hour. Van, off to you.
Great. Thanks, Ted. And this is Van Staub. Again, I kind of lead our channel technical sales here in North America for Watson Workspace. And I want to thank everyone that's joined. We had a lot of repeat attendees. In fact, we actually had about over 100 registrants. So Elizabeth from Brazil, I think, was the 100th. So I just want to say congratulations, and you get year-long bragging rights. So tweet or post on LinkedIn all about Watson Workspace. And then for those of you that might be, this being your first visit, as Ted said, this is part 2 of our continuing webinar series. And back in November, we were discussing building AI solutions with Watson Workspace. And today's all about delivery of those solutions. But, if you missed the first one, not to worry. It's out there on Partner World if you can find it. But I've also got a YouTube link at the bottom. If you Google building AI solutions with IBM Watson Workspace, it'll certainly come up. And in that first session, I spent a lot of the time discussing really the essence of Workspace. So we did an overview of Workspace, all from within Workspace. So I think it's the first time that we've ever done a presentation where we were doing it solely from a conversational tool and not PowerPoint. We looked at really the artificial intelligence, the cognitive, the Watson parts of Workspace through 4 chatbots. And so those chatbots really teased out, the cognitive, the Watson capabilities, laid them on the table so that developers, partners, clients understood the value that we're providing. And all of those chatbots are out there on GitHub for you to download, to understand how they work, and to really, use as a sample, as a starting point to create something really unique, engaging that you can put in front of clients. We also heard from Andrew Penrose. So Andrew is the IBM architect. He's working with Mears, and Mears is an IBM client based in the United Kingdom. And what they're doing is they're using Workspace and Watson Work Services to do sentiment analysis. So updates coming in from Twitter, posts from Facebook, All of that is being sent through Workspace to figure out, what is the sentiment? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? And then they've also integrated ServiceNow to sort of, if there is a negative sentiment that's detected, to put that into a workflow, give it to an incident response team, and handle as appropriate. So we also reviewed some of the developer documentations. We saw that there are many, many samples out there on GitHub, so it doesn't matter if you're a Java developer or a JavaScript developer, maybe even Python. We've got samples on the official Watson Work page repository. The repository that I have, Van-IBM, had an SDK, had a framework to get you started, and we used that framework and SDK to really build an app, I think in the span of about 10 minutes. We were a little rushed because, we had a long session, but, within 10 minutes, and that was mostly me talking, we got an app running and we were able to customize it. So there's really nothing holding you back from building these great applications, from building something that, we can label with Watson and get customers excited. So we've got the team, we've got the documentation, and we've got the samples ready to go for you. So today's all about, once you've built an application, how do you get it in the hands of your customers? And, if this was, a decade ago, we'd be talking about, creating websites, building marketing demand, maybe even using a traditional sales force. But we now live in kind of the App Store era. We live in the era of platforms where, clients, customers can kind of go to one place and have a variety of applications at their fingertips. And so we're kind of building that paradigm into Watson Workspace. And Kurt Igani is here today, and he's going to be telling us all about kind of Watson Workspace and its corresponding app catalog, and what that gives our partners and our customers the ability to sort of have a variety of applications, more value add at their fingertips. So, Curdy, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate all the recap of the work that you guys did a month ago, and hopefully for those of you on the call, you've had a chance over the last month to actually build something. So you may have started out with something small or something that's very quick that you were able to do in hopefully just 10 minutes like Van did in the last meeting, but our goal is to be able to help you understand and get to the point where we actually have your app in the catalog. So you can see that we already have a few of our partners have built applications and integrations into Workspace that are visible to all users today, based on regardless of what their entitlement is. If you're a preview user, you see those as well. But what's that next step, right, to get your app here? And so when you think about what we want to deliver with Workspace, we don't want it to just be another team collaboration platform, right? The key to our ability is, and what we've seen success with so far, is attacking the thought to businesses from what's going to be useful to them. So on the next slide, what we've outlined is a couple of areas that we've can just throw out there as ideas of the art of the possible, right? So regardless of what line of business the customer is in, that they specifically is at their core, or if they are, have different pieces of their business that have specific needs, there's nothing really stopping from creating application integrations into Workspace that can help them be more productive by leveraging what Workspace and Work Services as a platform provides to them, right? And they really run the gamut. You can see from this list here, these are just some examples, but it's really, the reason we put this together is to give you sort of some ideas as partners as to what you may want to start to build as far as, something that's commercially available or really adding value to a customer, right? So then, when you get to the point of actually having built something that you feel is, really worthy, or you're starting even just to get on that journey, right, and beyond the technical spot, what are the things that you can do to help get into our catalog, right? The first thing is going to be to engage with us. Prabhu from BizDev is, the primary contact for Workspace, but you can reach out to any of us. The process really starts there, but it doesn't end with Prabhu, and we're all here to help. As Ted mentioned, we work together daily on a number of paths with Workspace, but we're, getting our partners enabled and working together with us to get into the catalog is a core part of what we do too, right? Obviously after you engage, you want to meet with us and let's go through whatever the use cases that you've identified. Right? We want to make sure that, again, we're adding value to the end users, and how does the app integration that you built really do that, right? Because that's going to have the most attraction with customers, so that way we both can benefit at the end of the day. Obviously, from there, what makes us different is from the other team collaboration platforms is how we've infused AI as part of it, and we want to make sure that your app is taking advantage of that. It's going to help, again, show the value add and differentiation also from maybe competitive apps that are out there. And then obviously we want to review that user experience and work with you on it and help refine. It's not as simple as sort of an on-off or a binary type of relationship of you create the app, you submit it, and you either get in or you don't. We want to help work with you to make sure that we're doing the right things for our customers and that user experience is as good as we can get it. And obviously there's going to be things that as we refine and improve Workspace and the APIs that come with it through Work Services, we can provide you information or help to make sure that your app is also improving as well. So that way, again, it's continuing to improve as we do. So when you look at all of that, then you're probably saying, what are some of the things that apps do? So I'll turn it back to Van, and he can help cover some of those areas before we recap at the end some of the other next steps to get into our catalog.
Yeah, and I wanted to take a kind of a moment to talk about apps and really discuss that in the context of possible licensing approaches, because for many of the years that I've been in tech sales, I worked on our embedded solution agreements, our embedded partnerships, thinking about, how does their revenue model really match either our license costs or how do the features in, IBM products create something that a partner can actually monetize. So, to start that thought process, I wanted to kind of review what are the things that an app can do inside of Workspace. And to be clear, there's a variety of applications that you can kind of build, a variety of types that you can build, either using Work Services as the platform or Workspace as kind of the container. But I think for the sake of sort of just simplification here, let's assume that we're building, a chatbot style application, an application that lives inside of Workspace. And one of the most powerful aspects of Workspace is really it's this ability to understand the conversation, and that's the dialogue that's occurring amongst the users inside of a space. And so I think it makes absolute sense that, this is where all applications will begin by often monitoring the conversation for some type of actionable event, some place to sort of insert value add. And then, the next step is likely that the app will conduct some action. So an example might be based on what people are talking about, it's sending a message or it's sending a file to really inform that user to enhance, augment that conversation. And if you recall from the previous webinar, we showed a connections Q&A bot. And Q&A bot tried to answer users' questions. So it was using Watson Workspace's lenses to identify the question. And then once that question was identified, it was triggering the bot, and the bot would go out to Connections Cloud Forums and kind of use that content to figure out an answer. And if the answer was good enough, it would post that back into the space. And it would kind of, as you can see here, someone asked a question like, how can I do box integration with Connections? The bot would interrupt, albeit very helpfully, and kind of provide an answer for the benefit of that user or the people in the space in general. So an alternative approach to providing information is the / command. So rather than the bot kind of leaning in, as you saw previously, to interact, it can lean back. And what that means is it's waiting for that user to engage. So you can see here that ToDoBot, which was one of the bots that we showed, has this /todos command. And so you can see me typing /todo. That brings up the available commands that are available to me via the bot. And then you can also see that I can say, what are the to-dos for a space? Or I can say, what are the to-dos for just me? So you can not only send the command, but you can provide some qualifying information to adjust the behavior of the command. And the result of this is that we could have an action that could be another message posted into the space, but we could also have a variety of actions, or we might have a variety options, that the user can select. Maybe it's pieces of information that we're not sure what they want, but we're going to allow them to choose an option. We can deliver that using our action fulfillment framework that resides inside of Workspace. So here's where you can see that I have a series of to-dos. So I've invoked the to-dos / command. I'm asking the to-dos that are set up for this space. And I can see that, I've got a couple of pages here. You can see the little chevron and the green dot at the bottom showing that I have maybe a variety of content. I've got this to do with Ted to really set up a meeting to discuss the webinar. Now that that's done, Ted, I'll go ahead and complete that. And this gives us the ability to sort of build an app inside Watson Workspace, to build it really in context. But the bigger point here is that we have this variety of interactive approaches. So we could either have public approaches, such as posting that message into the space that benefits the user or everyone in the space, or we have these private models, this action fulfillment dialogue that you see, where we can kind of have this more specific one-to-one relationship with the user. And what I think about is that these approaches are either used to kind of build out that licensing model, or we use these approaches to sort of align to how you're already incurring or creating revenue. So what I want to do next is just sort of review what I think are the most likely licensing models with maybe some examples of applications. So we can start with something like a per API or a metered licensing model. And I think this is probably most applicable to something like a market intelligence application. So if you're familiar with OpenTopic and SIA, who's available in our catalog already, SIA is providing information on demand about market intelligence, or it could be a Forrester report, Gartner, Dunn's. Really, we have a lot of information that's delivered in the form of IP. And so as users sort of request this information ad hoc on demand, we want to do that in the context of the conversation. So if they mention, what's the compound annual growth rate in the autonomous car market, what Watson behind the scenes probably knows is that CAGR is a keyword. Autonomous car market would likely be classified as automotive. And if you have valuable insight, valuable intelligence, a report that can be created on demand, this is where you can kind of inject that as an option to the user and sort of build out that revenue, that monetization strategy. So if the user elects to receive that report, the cost of that report is in effect a per API charge from your solution. Now, a more familiar metric is probably these ones. It's the per organization metric, or maybe it's a per user license model. And this is one I think that fits more naturally with a SaaS-based application, SaaS-based subscriptions, which obviously Workspace already is. And I think of examples as, source control applications. Maybe it's GitHub, which is sort of the de facto way that our developers are now, building and storing, development and code for their projects. Or it could be like a technical support application. You saw PagerDuty earlier on one of our screenshots. We talked about how ServiceNow is integrated over at Mears. And so since these applications, these external third-party applications often have named users, those named users require paid access to that particular application. It obviously makes sense to just create a licensing model where we have a base cost, which is the third-party app. We have your value add as cost, and this is all being done on something like a per user, authorized user model. And then as those number of users grows, or as it hits a certain clip level, obviously you might go from just those individual users to something more of an enterprise or an organization licensing model. So one that I think is probably specific to Workspace and maybe new to us is this per space licensing metric. And this is where I think it applies to maybe a customer or an employee self-service type space. And let me give an example. So I might have a space where a chatbot is being used to resolve a particular issue. There's probably a really good real-world example out there if you've seen the marketing from IBM that a developer in the United Kingdom created this robot lawyer. It was a chatbot. And that chatbot was actually used to overturn something like 160,000 parking tickets in, I think, its first year of use. So incredibly valuable. And if you treat that consultation with this robot lawyer as an encounter, you can charge based on that encounter. And so the data, the interaction, the value of that encounter are all occurring as a dialogue that's contained in the space. So you're really charging based on the value created in that space. And then, of course, you'll have other spaces where that value is not being provided and it's obviously not being monetized or charged. And that would be maybe where traditional ad hoc collaboration that we expect to happen in Workspace is occurring. So if you're a visual person like me, we really have these three entities that relate back to our licensing options. So there's Workspace, the org on the left. So that's the per enterprise, per org model. There's also those spaces that occur inside of Workspace. So you might have space A as an unlicensed or just a traditional collaboration space, whereas space B in green is providing that value and incurring charges. And then we have those users. So those users between Workspace and your application, Van and Ted being licensed, and Curdy, well, having to forego and kind of the unlicensed individual. So all this, kind of starts to beg the question of how do we enforce licensing, or at least start to reconcile it with, this custom partner application we've developed. And there are, of course, many ways to probably accomplish this, but I'll give you one that's kind of been designed into Workspace, out the box. And so when developers create an application, they first start by registering it with Workspace, and that's the page on the left. And so as they're doing this registration process, they can optionally provide something called a configuration URL. And so you can see here on the left, I've got this configuration URL, myapp.company.com/app. And what that configuration URL allows you to do is to have the user, when they are accessing the app on the right in Workspace, they can configure this application to suit their needs. And this is useful for setting things like preferences, like personalization, things that would benefit your application to deliver a better user experience if it was provided. Now, if they click on that button, this is what's going to happen. The user gets redirected to a website. So this would be your partner application. This would be a website that the partner controls, and perhaps what you host on that web page, that website, is a form. That's going to allow them to configure the application, to really give you information that makes the app even better, personalization settings, for example. So on the technical side, what we're also delivering as part of that link to your web form is going to be a parameter called a configuration token. So the configuration token can be used to then give it back to Watson Work Services. So your code in your application will take that configuration token. It will go back to Watson Work Services and validate it. And what Watson Work will give you back is two pieces of information. We'll give you a little bit more, but it's really the user ID and the space ID that I think you want to take note of, because these are the pieces of information that we can use to reconcile with your licensing model. So to give an example, if we have a user ID, we could use it as is, or we could you could take that user ID and query to get an email address, for example. And if your licensing database or your login is an email address as well, great, the two match, the user is authorized, and what you would do is to store the user ID to allow future requests. So we can certainly get into more detailed technical discussions as needed, but I think just being aware of kind of the entities, the actors in kind of your system, in your app, in Workspace, and then knowing the available configuration page, the available identifiers that we use is really going to help you to kind of begin with the end in mind and begin and allow you to sort of build out that licensing model through this technical glue. So, Curdy, I think I've talked enough technology. Why don't we bring it back up to the app catalog and talk about kind of the rules of the road?
Yeah, appreciate it, Van. Obviously, thanks for sharing the technical details, and appreciate the value they bring there. So then when you look at the catalog itself, we do have some basic guidelines. Some of this is also covered more legalese in our terms of service description. There's a specific section on what the expectations are. But I want to hit at least a couple of these at a high level, so that way you have it in here from us, and then that way it's hopefully a non-issue as you continue to engage with us, right? Now, obviously, at the onset, when we look at apps or bot type of interactions or whatever that you are building, we want to make sure it's non-intrusive. So as you start to test and start to build things, make sure it's not almost coming off as spam. Obviously, you could treat spam as more like an advertisement type of thing, but I'm talking about just the interaction itself and how you're triggering your interactions, with your app from end users. And we also want to look at it beyond just, a number of apps that we're trying to get into our catalog. We don't want to just, throw in a bunch of things that just show a large number of interactions or relationships that we have, but we're really trying to drive quality into those relationships, so that way the end users and our customers can really see that they can really add value to what they're doing based on the types of app interactions that they can get, through our catalog. There's an expectation there, with IBM's name associated with it, that we're going to be able to help provide that level of, quality with the experience, right? We also want to make sure that your apps are self-contained and managed. We want to make sure it's very clean, and that way, whether it's on the install and actual usage, it's something that can be handled fairly easily. And then also, if by chance the end user or the customer decides that they don't need the app anymore, if they uninstall or remove it from the space, it's very clean. There's not anything legacy remaining there, listening to it, et cetera, again, from that expectation around quality. And then from, an overall production level application and app integration, needs to be highly available, needs to be reliable. There's an expectation of, 24/7, 365 availability of workspace. Your app integration it's in our catalog should have the same expectation. And then obviously, as you gain users and customers directly, it can handle the scale of usage as that increases, right? And again, all this are items that we'll cover. And when we've done is outline on the next slide is some of the items that we expect, to be shared with us as we get into the process of reviewing applications. So what we've set up is a process to where there's a set of stakeholders that are, deeply involved in Workspace that review those partner applications that are being submitted to go into our catalog. And these are, some of the key parts of what we expect to be submitted to us, so that way we can go through that process fairly easily and obviously interact. If there are things that we can give feedback on, we can provide it to you, and then move the process along at a fairly reasonable level, right? We also have, a Word document that we'll share with you as you're getting closer to this point of submitting to us, so that way it's very clearly outlined, and then you can sort of go through that and share it with us, fairly easily, right? So when we continue on, obviously it's really about the relationship that's key to us, right, with you and as our partners. We want to work together. This is all for our mutual benefit to, again, help our customers see the value of what Workspace does, and also bring the things to the table that can make them more productive, and know that they have a solid group of people behind the apps that they're using that's available to them, right? So obviously, work with us, help us, we'll provide feedback, we'll work together with you, and when you're ready to actually flip the switch from after these processes are done, programmatically, hit the button in the developer experience, actually submit it. That gives us the ability to hopefully to turn it on very quickly, right?
So, Curdy, when's a good time for a partner to start that process? Do they need to wait until they have something that's really polished, or I would think that there's value for them dialoguing early. So, any thoughts there?
Either way is fine by us, right? Starting early is great, so that way we can really work together. If you already have something that you've already started to build or already had built, and it's just a matter of refining it for the needs of the interaction in Workspace, that's fine too. We're here to help along the journey wherever point that you're at to start out with us. It's not a concern from my perspective. We've had partners that have started out from basically ground zero that we've been progressing with. We've had ones that have already had apps that have been built into other platforms that they were able to turn around fairly quickly with minor modifications to then use with Workspace. So either way we can handle it. And are excited to work with you. So with that, I know that ends our presentation. We do have time for Q&A. If there's questions, we'd love to hear from you in the chat and help answer them. And then obviously there's a list of assets that are in Partner World to help you get started. And again, we'll share this deck as well. And you have the ability to contact us directly in Workspace. Send us a direct message if you'd like to get going.
Yeah, and Curdy, this is Ted. Hey, thanks to the presenters. It's always a treat for me to work with such smart people, and again, to the audience that was here, appreciate your being here. I did see a couple of folks that are attending that have they've proposed some new ideas, and they brought those forward, and we're working with a number of partners right now to help them build and eventually deliver those solutions as part of this discussion that we had today. So really don't be shy. If you're an IBMer who's on the call and you're working with partners or you have some ideas, bring them forward. It's the time's right. Essentials Plus will be coming out in the very near future, and we want to keep this drumbeat going. So look for the next invite. If you didn't, view the first session that we ran, please go back and look at it if you think that it can add some value. So, really appreciate it.
And Prabhu, if Prabhu wants to say any wise words.
Yes. Thank you, John. This is Prabhu. I'm full of wise words today.
I knew it.
I just wanted to say thank you to all our partners for joining this call, for listening to the recording. We do value your input, and as Curdy had said, we want you to get started. Sooner the better, and I'm going to be your first point of contact. I'll help you navigate the waters, and we are eager for you to see your integration ideas, and we'll help you with it. Thank you so much, and good job, Van, Curdy, and Ted. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's Van. So we'll continue our webinar series. The next one I think we might be a little more technical, and if people have requests, things that they'd like to see, things that they'd like to understand more, I'd love to hear those. So either post in the chat or just engage with me directly at my email address. But some of the things that I've been working on in my spare time is working with technology like Strong Loop, like Loopback. So it's great to have this bot framework or this application framework in Workspace, but there's a lot of other things that are required to make applications run, and storing those in databases, having APIs available to make that process easier. Loopback is a great technology, and I think it's a great complement to building applications, building these chatbots within Workspace. So if that's something that you think is interesting, I can tee it up, but if there's something else, I'd certainly be open to looking into it and putting a session around it.
Okay, Ted, I'm going to turn it back over to you for any closing comments.
Nope, again, just thanks to everybody, and we'll give you a few minutes back in your day. Let us know what you need, as Van said, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for our presenters today, and everybody have a great close of the year. Thank you. Bye-bye.